Hello and welcome. We are doing Anthropological Theory, Paper 1, Chapter 6. If you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, please subscribe to this channel. Now, we have completed Ralph Linton, Margaret Mead, Ruth Benedict, and Culture Personality Schools Introduction. Now, in order to complete this topic, only two topics are remaining here. The first is Abraham Kardiner and the second is Cora Dubois. So in the next video, we'll do Cora Dubois. For here in this video, the only focus is on Abraham Kardiner. So Kardiner, first, he was a psychiatrist, and he was a student of Sigmund Freud. We have talked about Sigmund Freud in the chapter Religion, the need of religion, and we talked about Sigmund Freud, and the contribution of Sigmund Freud will be dealing with also in the family topic family, chapter 2. Okay, so we'll also do Sigmund Freud there, but here the only thing you have to understand is that Abraham Kardiner, he was a psychiatrist and a student of Sigmund Freud, and he was a neo-Freudian. He was a neo-Freudian. He argued that early years of life were most important and crucial for the formation of adult personality. So according to Abraham Kardiner, it is the early life, that is the childhood, is important for adult personality. He organized two important interdisciplinary seminars, one in 1931 and another in 1937. In 1936, seminars, scholars like Edward Sapir and Ruth Benedict, and in 1937, scholars like Ralph Linton, who was influenced by Abraham Kardiner, and Cora Dubois were also participated in 1937. Okay, so in 1989, he published a book. That is Psychological Frontier of Society. And he talked about the individual and society. In the same year, he also published another book which is titled as Individual and Society. In the same, he proposed the idea of basic personality. In the book, he proposed the idea of basic personality. The Kardiner had ethnographic data. Abraham Kardiner, he had ethnographic data in forms of paper by his colleague in the seminar. He examined the data and developed the idea of, with the help of this ethnographic data which he received in the seminars. Okay, 1931 and 1937, even in 36, some of them. Okay, so there were seminar, the research papers. Kardiner studied this research paper. With the help of these ethnographic data, he gave the concept of basic personality. Similar concept, model personality, was given by Malinowski, a functionalist. Now he examined the data and developed the idea of basic personality. He developed it by applying psychodynamics and other psychological tests to examine the anthropological data. He defined the basic personality as common characteristics of personality among all the members of group. among all members of group. In every culture, there exist some common characteristics of personality belonging to all culture. This is called as basic personality of the culture. So there are definitely certain common characters which are common to all members in culture, and these common characteristics is termed as basic personality according to Kardiner. In any culture, there are techniques of child rearing. Okay, there is a duration of various breastfeeding. Okay, there is duration of child rearing. There is a duration of feeding. Okay, then there is a method of weaning, toilet training, for example Japan, sexual orientation, for example Gotul, or institution, dormitory, okay, where the senior or the adult girls will teach the younger men about the sexual intercourse. These developments, okay, every member goes through this similar training, and these developments contain a common personality trait features, and the common personality feature together constitute the basic personality type. So you see that these are certain common traits, okay, common characteristics which are prevalent in many societies or nearly all the cultures, but there is a little difference in the duration of child rearing, weaning, or training, etc. So that comes under the common personality features. Now the common personality feature together constitute the basic personality type. So these, that is the common cultural feature, they'll come together to make a common cultural personality, and this common cultural personality will lead to basic personality, Now according to him, cultural institutions are of two types. Cultural institution, this is of two types. These are of two types. First is primary institution, and the second is secondary institution. Now what is primary institution and what is secondary institution is important. Okay, and this is not one thing that if something is primary institution, it can't be secondary institution. Okay, there can be institution which is both primary as well as secondary. So first, that is primary institution are those that are responsible for forming the basic personality structure, and these institutions are, primary is basically those institutions which are responsible for development of basic personality, okay, that is concerned with disciplining of child, restricting the child, or allowing the child to have gratifying experiences. So this comes under primary. For example, the institution of family, okay, the institutions of subsistence pattern, that how a person lives, then occupation, group formation, various institutions, environment, ecology, and economy. This comes under primary. In secondary, institutions are those which are there to satisfy the needs. Which will be the result of primary institutions. So this particular thing, it creates tension by the primary institution, and these secondary institutions, for example, rituals, tradition, religion or religious belief, taboo, incest taboo for example, folktale, folklore, etc. will be the secondary institution. For example, a child's experience during early life determines a lot of his religious belief. Okay, the child who are brought up in household with strict authoritarian father, the child's conceptualize the deity as demanding God and enforcing discipline and always obedience. So these are something which is related to the primary and secondary institutions. Now Kardinal's model is a dynamic model. Okay, this basic personality model. This basic personality model of, see, question will directly come from this, like basic personality model. And now you don't know what you have to write down because you haven't read this topic. So that should not happen. Okay, so you start with the Kardiner, cultural personality school. Okay, then you talk about the common characteristics, write down the common characteristics, then talk about the cultural institution, then give primary, secondary, write down this in primary and this in the secondary, and try to recall what is the discussion that we had on these particular primary as well as on secondary. All right, now we write down the next part of this. Okay, so this Kardiner's BPT model is basically dynamic because in the first stage the primary institution are the basic personality. Okay, and the personality thus created influence the society through creation of secondary institution. Okay, so the people, he gives an example of the people of Marquess Island in Polynesia, or you can simply write down Polynesian community or tribe, which is drought prone. Drought prone. Okay, it leads to the consequent starvation. This leads to consequent starvation. So to keep the population within the limit of available food supply, the practice of female infanticide is practiced. The practice of female infanticide is practiced. Now Kardiner's model is very dynamic as we have studied. So so the practice of female infanticide, this leads to a very screwed sex ratio, which is for every 5 adult men, for every 5 men, okay, there are 2 women. For every adult 5 men, there are 2 men, and thus leading to the polyandry, and this leads to polyandry. In the polyandrous household, the males, especially son and father, experience from the female neglect, and it leads to jealousy among men and creating animosity towards women. Among Marquess, there are ceremonial taboos expressing the underlying hatred among women, and the folk tales and oral poetry reflect the attitude of men towards women as wicked, unkind and cruel, and not caring the infants. Thus Kardiner conclude that among the Marquess, food scarcity and polyandry has led to the absence of basic principle. So this polyandry and food scarcity, it has led to the cruelty. It has led to cruelty among the Marquess. Then second is that it has led to a particular type of personality. It is cruelty. This particular circumstances had led to certain personality, and this personality becomes the basic personality of the Marquesas. Okay, and according to him, it is primary institutions where the changes have to be brought, and the resultant change will be in the secondary institution. And when the primary and secondary institution will change, it will bring a change in basic personality of the institution. Thank you. In the next video, it will be the last in the series, and we'll talk about the Cora Dubo. Thank you.